Which Teslong borescope is right for you? I'm going to cover the NTG450 and the NTG500, and we're going to go over those in just a minute. All right, so it's no secret, I'm a fan of Teslong borescopes. I've been using them since they basically hit the market, and I think that they have, for better or worse, depending on how people use them, revolutionized home gun care. Now, there's certainly plenty of videos I've seen where people probably overanalyze things because they can now. And I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. And this isn't a video on the right and wrong way to use borescopes. But I do think that in general, I would say Teslong in general with their digital borescopes has really revolutionized the market. Now, there's obviously some other brands out there that are similar. I don't think any of them honestly do it as well as Teslong. So along with the two screened versions I have here, they also make some Wi-Fi versions. They make flexible cord. They make the rigid ones like you see here. They do a bunch of different stuff. So there's pistol versions. I mean, whatever you do, there's a model for you. But I'm going to be covering the NTG450 and the NTG500. The 450 versus the 500 nomenclature is simply because this is a 4.5-inch screen. This is a 5-inch screen. So it is a little bit bigger. Some of the core differences between these, aside from the screen size, is the fact that the 500 does have a built-in work light, so you can actually, let me turn it on here, but you can actually turn on a light here, so if you needed it, it does have that, whereas the 450 doesn't. As far as the actual screen resolution, they are both a visible, it's 854 by 480 is the actual screen resolution. So there's really not a lot of resolution difference. What I have found is the actual screen size makes it easier, and I feel like you get a little better clarity out of it. The 500, according to the Teslong website, the 500 does have the same image recording as the 450, but you get a little better video recording with the 500. So the 450, when it comes to recording video, through the SD card, which is down here, the 450 is going to give you 1280 by 720, whereas the 500 on video recording will get you a full 1920 by 1080. So a much better resolution in terms of the video you see. And I'm going to be showing you both down the bore through the borescope, so how it's recording inside, as well as my phone trying to mimic what it looks like to see the screen. It's not perfect because it's hard to record a screen compared to how a person's eyes are going to see things, but I'll do my best to show you a side-by-side image of what the screen sees versus what is inside. I can tell you, having used both of these, I think you're going to be shocked at honestly how much easier and better things look on the 500. Price-wise, a little bit of difference. These are typically around 140. These are 225. Again, that's for the rigid version, which I personally think if you're going to use it at home, that's the only way to go. The flexible one is great. It has benefits for traveling and storage. But to be honest, using it day in and day out, I had a flexible one that I used for a long time, and I found it more annoying than anything to have to uncoil it. And, and it wouldn't go straight down the bore. Like, it works fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, but there's just something so much easier about sticking just a solid shaft down the hole. So it just works better in my opinion. So for home use, I have that. I will show you in a minute what I do for traveling, and it is an option that you could certainly explore. Both of these use a plug. It's basically a USB-C, but it is sort of a specialized plug right here that clicks in. One thing that I did notice on the 450, it uses a spring detent to hold the cord in so it can't come out, whereas on the 500 here, there's a little screw hole, and inside you get a couple of these little tiny screws, tiny screws with a little Allen wrench so you can secure it. I don't bother doing that because I don't have a problem with it popping out. Both of these include, you can see there's a screw hole here and a screw hole here. Both of these are going to allow for a kickstand that they make if you want to leave it propped up. Honestly, for me, it just gets in the way, so I don't bother with it. They allow you to take still photographs, video, and then obviously playback on here if you want. And so you might be thinking, well, why do I want a screened version versus maybe their Wi-Fi version or their computer plug version? Let me just tell you my experience. I've owned probably 5 or 6 different Teslongs at this point. And if I haven't mentioned it, just full disclosure, they did send me these as samples. I've had this one for quite a while. They just sent me the 500 because it's relatively new, and they wanted me to compare it and see what I thought. And I always try to be really open and honest with you guys when I get sent products. So again, full disclosure, I did not pay for this one. These are definitely the kinds of products, though, I can tell you I would buy one 100% without even blinking because I use it all the time. So, what do you kind of get between these? Well, you're going to get essentially the same rod. So you've got a mirror on the end here, you've got a handle here, and then a coupler that plugs in. The biggest difference with the 500, this is sort of a silver gray anodized compared to a bright silver aluminum here. And it does have some knurling on it, which I guess in theory would give you a little more control, although I honestly never had a problem with the original. The 500 also comes with a $20 option, which is the specialized mirror kit. And if we look inside, there's actually special mirrors in here for different diameters. And the biggest thing this gets you is a better alignment inside the bore for viewing. And I have noticed using a mirror kit that it does help. Now, you can always buy one of these and get the mirror kit for it as well. It's not the end of the world, so just kind of telling you what you're getting with it. The 450 comes with kind of a rubberized, you can see it's like, your typical rubber power cord looking item, whereas the 500 comes with a very nice braided cable. I have found just using these two simultaneously that I do really like this braided material. It's not as stiff. It's a little easier. It just kind of lays down. You're not kind of fighting it quite as much as the rubber, but again, the rubber really isn't that big of a deal. Let me show you real quick what I was talking about when it comes to traveling. So I actually have, and you can get just the flexible cable. And so this is the flexible borescope. And I just take this when I travel, and then I have the, all I have to do is disconnect this and connect it to my flexible, and now I have a travel kit. So I can take this with me when I travel, and it works great. I come back home, I screw it onto my rigid borescope, and I'm good to go there. So, it does give you some modularity to work with. It also comes with this secondary cable, which I showed you earlier, and both the 450 and the 500 come with these. So these are the two versions. And this is to plug into either a tablet, if it's supported. Not every tablet is supported. It has to have certain power requirements and stuff, but it does plug into a computer. It does have an adjustable light switch on it here, so you can move it up or down. It's something that isn't on the standard cable that plugs into the screen, because with this one here, you can adjust the light on the actual tablet. So for the computer, you use this to adjust the intensity of the light. So it gives you a bunch of different ways to plug in. Both of these rods are essentially the same actual rod, and it's hard to see on camera, but there are notes here for measurements. So if you're trying to figure out, okay, how far down the barrel is there an inclusion or a problem, you can just look right here and make a note. It does have this rubber stopper, so you can also use that to mark a place. If you have this down, you push this forward, it stops, and then that way you don't lose your place on where there was potentially an issue down the barrel. So I really do like that. The only thing I noticed with the 500 is the mirror kit is really great, but it doesn't come with the rubber caps. So this here it's like 12 cents at my Ace Hardware, and it's just slightly larger than the one that comes with the standard 22. So the standard 22 bore that comes, or mirror that comes in the kit, does have a rubber protector cap. And maybe I'm just weird in my shop that I like keeping the mirror covered here. So I just ran to my Ace and bought a plastic cap for it. But that way the mirror is protected when I'm bouncing it around. Both of these have a lower SD card and charging port that are covered up here. It works great. I don't have any issues with it. And, really, that's it. I mean, these do what they represent. They, I think for the money, they're just, like I said, they're really hard to beat. I've owned actual optical borescopes, the ones that are like $600 to $1,000. And yes, they look really great. But honestly, especially with bad eyes, I find it's easier and it tells me everything I want through the screen. I have no doubt that in, very capable hands, there are probably things you can see with, that kind of system that you may not pick up on this. Although I would have said that more with the 450, with the 500. I feel like it's really, really close to being anything you would ever need. So, if people ask, and I've had people at my club, because, I've taken these and shown them off and stuff. And, people say, well, is it worth the money? If I'm spending, 140 versus 220, yes, you're getting the mirror kit. So, it's like 140 versus, let's say, 200. Is it worth the $60? I think a lot of it comes down to how much you plan on using it. I have friends who pull out a borescope once every, 5-6 months. For them, honestly, I tell them it may be worth just getting like the $50 Wi-Fi version. It's not that big a deal. For me, the Wi-Fi version worked great. I just didn't like having to turn it on, then connect to my phone or my tablet, then go to the app. Then, there was just a lot of steps. And a lot of times when you're in your shop and you want to look down a barrel or look down a die or whatever you're using the borescope for, you just want it to happen. And that's where I've probably gotten really spoiled having the screens. I would really recommend it. I have some other buddies who bought the Wi-Fi versions originally, and they've just bought the tablets so that they can have, interchangeability. There's a lot of things you can do with it. So anyway, let me show you what it looks down my barrel with. And you're going to see parts that are dirty, parts that are clean. I think it's going to be a really good comparison for you. And, see what you think after that. So this is the 500 model. And you can see we're right at the transition there. So that's where the carbon ring would be. This barrel's got some fouling in the beginning, but I chose this one because you can see really good resolution right there. And then if I go further in, you can see that it's really clean. So it gives you a really good idea of what this can display either way. It's really funny because I've used the 450 for quite a while, and it's got a great screen, and I don't have anything against it. But if you do a lot of work, gunsmithing, stuff like that, and you're inside of a barrel a lot, I do think this is worth the money. I think for the average person, honestly, either one's going to be fine. I don't think you're really going to be upset about having the 450 for half the price, but I will tell you, this thing does deliver. It's really pretty impressive. So there we go again. Let's go to the end of the barrel. Nice and clean. And back here. So this is the 500. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 450 now. And here goes the 450 model. Now again, there's really nothing wrong with this. It's clear. I've used it for a long time. You can see here, we're looking at the same dirty part of the barrel. And then if I go to the clean part of the barrel, same thing. It's just a little smaller, and it's honestly just not as clear. So price difference, yes. Quality difference, yes. It's just a case of how often do you use it? What are you using it for? What do you want to see? Let me just take a through from start to finish like I did on the other one here. And there you go. That is that's just real pictures in front of you to make a decision with. And some people might look at it and say, well, that's not for me at all. Well, that's okay too. For me, it does everything that I need. I just love having them. I've bought, so even before they sent me a couple, I've probably bought 2 or 3 of them on my own. I bought a couple of the Wi-Fi's. I bought the rigid one. I bought the flexible one. And, like it's just one of those things where I've never hesitated to spend the money, because for me, it's really important. I've used it to look down dies. I've looked inside of brass. I've obviously looked down barrels. I actually used it underneath my fridge one time. So, there's a lot of things that you can do with it. And, that's just how I feel about them. So if you've been in the market for one of the screened versions, hopefully that helps you make a decision. As always, I appreciate you watching. You guys have a good one. We'll talk later.